Hello, my friends. So here I am again today, and the holidays are coming up, and there's a lot of stress, by the way. As I look around, everybody is stressed about the holidays. That's very interesting to me because holidays are meant for celebration, and here we are getting all stressed about the holidays. Remember, the word holiday comes from the word holy day. Holy. These are holy days. They are sacred days. They are days for us to get in touch with ourselves. They are days for celebration, days for renewal, days for resurrection, days for atonement, days for joy, days for getting in touch with our spirit. So why the stress? Stress is the worst use of imagination. As I've said before, creativity is the best use of imagination. But as we approach the holidays, I would like to address a topic that I'm very fond of, and that is that there are spiritual solutions to every problem. Or should I say, spiritual solutions to every perceived problem, spiritual solutions to every challenge, spiritual solutions to every adversity. And so happy to see all of you joining from all over the world. I'm very grateful that you're participating in this conversation, giving me your feedback. So let's get going immediately. So what is a problem? What is an adversity? What is suffering? Suffering is a perception that comes from the isolated, lonely self. It also comes when we are constantly moving from pleasure to pain. So first of all, it's very important to realize that pleasure is not happiness. Although pleasure can bring us a certain amount of happiness transiently, but ultimately pleasure cannot bring about happiness. Happiness comes from going beyond personal pleasure and actually increasing the activity of, in a sense, joy together. Happiness is never alone. Only pleasure can be alone. And then there's something else beyond happiness, and which is called joy, which is the fundamental condition of our being, fundamental condition of our soul, fundamental condition of our awareness prior to all conditioning. Okay, so let's see the 7 levels with which people respond to challenges or adversities or problems. 7 is an interesting number, right? 7 spiritual laws, 7 chakras, 7 states of consciousness, and now 7 levels of response to challenging situations, to problems, to adversities. By the way, they do correspond to the chakras, because chakras are nothing more than junction points between consciousness and biology. So the chakra mapping is a pretty useful mapping anyway for everything from states of consciousness to states of mind-body responses to states of modifications of being. So let's explore, okay? The first way that people respond to challenges is what is called the fight, flight, freeze response. This corresponds to the first chakra. So the fight, flight, freeze response is that in a threatening situation, which is what all stress and all suffering are, it's the perception of physical or psychological threat So the first, most basic survival response to that is what we call the fight or flight or freeze response. Does this have any function? Yes, it does. In a life-threatening situation, there's no question that the fight or flight response could save your life. So if your house is burning and you suddenly know that, then you run. It's at that moment you don't think about who lit the fire, who lit the match, and what was their motivation. Was it an accident? Was it on purpose? And the fight-flight response says, house is burning, run. Okay, so that's what you do, run. You take flight. Also, if you're in the middle of a lonely alley and somebody mugs you or holds you up with a gun, then the fight-flight response might be justified. I had that happen to me once, and I let out a big scream, and it so unnerved my attacker that the gun fell out of his hand. And I quickly picked it up and threw it away, and then I ran and he ran as well. So, the fight-flight response is useful in life-threatening situations, and it's built into our biology. But right now, this response, which is the fight-flight survival response, is creating all the problems in the world. War, terrorism, eco-destruction, mechanized death, all of this is nothing but world leaders basically resorting to the fight-flight response. Okay. But in certain selective situations, it can be a solution to a dangerous situation. Okay, the second response is called the reactive response. It's the ego response. It's the ego trying to control a situation through various melodramas and controlled responses. The ego response can be very nice and manipulative, or it can be angry and intimidating and manipulative, or it can be stubborn and manipulative, as when people withdraw, or it can be playing the victim. Actually, if you look around, the political leaders right now in the world, they're either in the fight-flight response or the ego response. So either playing the victim, or it's somebody's fault, or getting angry, getting upset, and manipulating through being nice, or sometimes by being stubborn and withdrawing. These are all ego responses, and let's call them the reactive response. So next time you are tempted to react from the ego manipulative response or the fight-flight response, and it's not an emergency, you might just want to press the pause button and observe your reaction to react. Okay, so these two first responses, fight-flight and ego reactive, are mind-body responses, which is what 99% of the people resort to, or human beings resort to, when they are challenged by a situation. Okay, now let's go to the third response, and this is going to a deeper level of awareness. It's going beyond mind and body. And the third response, let's call it restful awareness response, which means you just shift your identity from body, mind, ego to the awareness that is witnessing the reactive responses, or the awareness that is witnessing the ego and fight-flight responses. And this, even with a little bit of shift, puts you in a state of stillness where you, in fact, for the moment, transcend the response. One way to actually keep strengthening your ability to stay in restful awareness is practicing mindful awareness in the present moment, or through meditation, even primordial sound meditation, mantra meditation, that helps you transcend thought and go to the source of thought. Also, by the way, this restful awareness response is enhanced in deep sleep and dreams, and sometimes solutions appear in deep sleep, but they only surface to the conscious mind when you wake up, or there may be solutions appearing in the dream state. Okay, so restful awareness, being aware of being aware of the witnessing presence in every situation. Now, once we get to the third response, this opens the window to some very interesting responses. If you go into restful awareness, even deep sleep, or even the dream state, or the meditation state, and prior to that you ask a question, you will find that after the experience of restful awareness, meditation, deep sleep, dreams, reflective self-inquiry, awareness of mental space and body, and introspection, and what is also called introception, solutions start to appear spontaneously if you ask the questions. In fact, the phrase is live the questions and life will move you into the answers. I've also found that asking too many specific questions is not necessary. The big questions: who am I? What am I? Who wants to know? What am I? What do I want? What's my purpose? What am I grateful for? These big questions, if lived from the level of being, give you access to intuition all the time. And so this is the fourth response, the intuitive response. Intuition is a form of intelligence that is contextual, which is holistic, which does not have a win-lose orientation, which eavesdrops on the cosmic mind, and which has a computing capacity far beyond the rational mind. So that would be the fourth response, the intuitive response, available to all of us in every situation. But live the questions, live the big questions. Okay, the fifth response is creative response. This is actually creating an entirely new situation, entirely new story, entirely new context, entirely new meaning, entirely new purpose, and it comes from a more expanded level of awareness, which is even beyond intuition. So when we access the creative response, we have an intended outcome, we gather information, we analyze information, we incubate in non-local awareness, we have spontaneous insight, which leads to inspiration, which leads to what we call incarnation and integration, and completely new story, new context, new modalities of relationships, and ultimately new story. The old story dies and the new story is born. True creativity is a death and a resurrection at the same time. Now, in true creativity also, there is emergence. It's disruptive. It's absolutely nothing to do with the previous story, the previous context, the previous meaning and purpose and mode of relationships that you were experiencing. In the Shiva Sutras and elsewhere in the Vedic literature, there's a lot of wonderful insights on creativity. Number one, be in touch with your subtle senses, subtle sound, subtle taste, subtle smell, subtle sensation. Number two, relinquish your need for approval and anticipation of what could go wrong. Number three, see the whole in the particular and the particular in the whole. Number 4, 5, whatever, step into the unknown, relinquish the known, let go of your habitual certainties, and then go through the 9 steps, intended outcome, information gathering, information analysis, insight, intuition, inspiration, integration, incarnation, and action, and new story. So those are the different aspects of the creative response. There's a creative solution to everything that ever happens. Okay. I did miss one of the 9 steps. So it's intended outcome, information gathering, information analysis, incubation, insight, inspiration, implementation, integration, incarnation. Those are the 9 steps. Okay, what's beyond that? Beyond that is the archetypal or visionary response, where you symbolically represent an archetypal energy or archetypal awareness. The energy of Shiva, or the energy of Ganesh, or the energy of Lakshmi, the goddess of abundance, the energy of Durga, the goddess that destroys, the energy of Tara, the different Dakinis and divine feminine energies in the realms of the collective consciousness and the collective spiritual inheritance. When you incorporate these energies, then you become capable of extraordinary things. You awaken dormant potentials, which are frequently referred to as the siddhis, supernormal powers, and ultimately you even align yourself with the elements and forces of the universe so that you experience spontaneous synchronicity all the time. The visionary response, the ability to look at the future based on choices in the present. Also precognition, remembrance of other lifetimes, the ability to navigate multiple realms at the same time. Yeah, Salonga says autobiography of a yogi. That would be the visionary or archetypal response. And finally, there's something called the sacred response, which actually happens when we go beyond all these responses and settle into non-local being, awareness, or just pure consciousness, which is prior to all conditioning. Choiceless awareness, allowing the universe to evolve. In this state, there are no problems, and therefore no need for solutions. Salonga is right. This is the state of self-realization or meta-human. So I hope this information is helpful to you. We can actually go deeper into each of these responses and refine them. So we are always in this expanded state of awareness. Think of very limited awareness, the fight, flight, and ego responses, as a person walking in a dark room and stumbling into every piece of furniture because everything is an obstacle. And then think of a little more expanded consciousness now with the same person, but they have a flashlight in the dark room, and they move the flashlight around, and they see that everything that was an obstacle was actually a useful object, a piece of furniture or a beautiful art object or something, but was not a problem. It was not a hurdle. It was either a thing of beauty or a thing that could be useful to you. And then think of somebody in the same room, but all the lights are lit, and then you can see everything, and you see that every object, every artifact, every piece of furniture serves a purpose. But then you can get rid of the walls altogether and become unbounded, no longer confined in the box that you call a room, And now the world and the universe become your playground. And that's what life is meant to be. Play. Play. Creative play. And as Lord Shiva says, that's why we are here, to participate in the creative play of the universe. That's it. And let's do that this coming year. Let's explore how it is to live without boundaries in the state of a supreme joy. And I want to just end this conversation with a quote from the Shiva Sutras, where Lord Shiva, speaking to Shakti, the great goddess, says, all relationships based on need are ultimately doomed for failure. But a relationship that is based on playfulness and joy and creativity and love will lead to ecstasy. Ecstatic moments, my friend, as we enter the holiday season. No need to be stressed. Thank you, Salongo. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Francis. Thank you, Ashok. Wow, from India. Thank you, Kelly. Thanks. Thank you, Claudie. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, all my friends. Thank you, Salah, Shuraiki. Thank you, Deborah. Thank you, Shave. Thank you, Kiran. Keep your feet on the ground. Keep reaching for the stars. And explore only joy, love, compassion, equanimity, empathy, peace.